thanks for attending. The reason we're doing this is because emotionally based school avoidance is such a hot topic at the moment. So the work that I do involves regional work. I work with many schools and lots of our children are challenged in this way. So this is a bank of ideas that we've developed and that we've put in practice at some of the different services. So it's just to run through, just to hopefully, I'm not going to teach you to suck eggs, but hopefully there'll be something here that is new or that you can think about. At various points, I'm going to ask you to maybe put yourself in the place of the family, think about the child. So just so that you can get a more sort of empathetic view on it. So if we're going to move straight onto what we're going to cover in the next 40 minutes or so. So we're going to look at the definition of emotional based school avoidance, or EBSA. How does it present, the impact on families, how we can all work together to help overcome any safeguarding implications, EBSA and school attendance, the return to school, because that is the aim, that's the outcome that we are after, is getting these children and young people back into school. A new idea that we're currently running with is called an enhanced transition timetable. So I'm going to go through that and the idea behind it and how that actually works in action. And there are some notes and things for you to see that have actually come out of meetings. Going to have a look at the use of clinical input and how that can develop into support plans. Then finally, we're looking at technology and support, which is where it's going to go to in the future, I think. And then obviously there's going to be the list of all the external links to resources and the DFE documents that have come from this as well that are linked. So to start with, we're going to go through what is EBSA and how does it present, because it varies, and it can vary on the age of the child as well, and it can vary on what type of school they're in, on the relationship, on their background, on their family. So it's not an easy one size fits all. It's lots and lots of different things. So it can be described as school anxiety and school refusal. That is the definition of what EBSA is. So together, they have become the latest set of educational buzzwords. Ofsted are interested in it, and especially around attendance. But it is important at the bottom of this to try and understand why it happens, because it impacts massively on a child's opportunities in education. So what we want to do is lessen the impact for them. Hopefully, like I say, by the end of this session, you'll have a clearer understanding of what it is, who it affects, and what impact it can have on not just the children, but their families as well. So a simple picture, if you like. I work with a lot of children who have visual needs, so you'll find all the way through that information is displayed in different ways. And again, it's a tactic that we can use with children all the time. So it can be the result of anxiety and worry about going to school. So child in the centre, all those images on there are linked to different things at school, and we're going to go work through them. So it could be down to them struggling with mental health, or they could have a neurodiverse condition, or they could have some other kind of special educational need. They could be autistic, ADHD, maybe dyslexic, dyspraxic, dyscalculic, and all of those things can make the school a really challenging environment. The more challenge that they perceive, the more anxious that they will become. And because of that, it's really undiagnosed and not supported at all. So the next bit is indicators to look for at home. So I think we've got a problem with the slides not moving on. Hang on one sec.
It's all clear this end, Pam. They're all showing. If you have got a slight issue, it might be worth just leaving and rejoining and seeing if that improves it, because I think for the majority the slides are showing correctly.
So we're okay to go on? You can see them, yeah? Okay, that's fine. So indicators to look out for at home, and these can be at any age, to be honest. And what we have found is that children who start with anxiety and start with worry can very often be the little ones. And it's quite difficult when a child is 5, 6, 7, even 8 years old to define at the very beginning, are they anxious? Are they worried? Or is there else something that's going on as well? So with each of these, we say just have a talk to the family, have a think about it. So this is information that can be shared with parents. It could be signs to ask the parents to look out for. They complain of stomachache or a headache when they wake up. They're physically sick in the morning, or they're saying they're going to be sick. They suddenly will wolf breakfast down of a weekend. You can't fill them up, especially when they're a bit older, but they're not interested of a Monday to Friday because they're worried. They've got that sick feeling. They don't sleep well from Sunday night through to Thursday night. They can't sleep. And they complain constantly of not being well. And these can all be early signs that we can ask parents when we speak to them, are they showing any of these signs at all? And if they are, they can be really early indicators that we're having some anxiety starting to build up. So the next bit is indicators that can be at home or at school. So a child that's not able to regulate their emotions. Again, we see it early on with children who possibly haven't got a diagnosis yet, but there are other signs or symptoms that they need some other kind of medical intervention as well. Children not being themselves, they're withdrawn, they're angry, they're upset, and they don't know why they're withdrawn, they're angry, or they're upset. They're not able to explain to you why, they just are. Worry about lessons. Constantly worry about lessons. What lesson's next? What lesson was it before? What haven't I done? Am I ready? Am I not ready? Is my bag going to break on the way there? Am I going to trip up on the way to school? It can be lots and lots of little things that all build up into one big worry. And exams, which we are just at the tail end of, can be particularly stressful. So it's really useful to be aware of the time of year as well. Is there anything coming up? If you've got a child who is dyspraxic, really doesn't like sports, has got really poor hand-eye coordination, the mention of sports day, the thought of it coming to the summer term, anything like that can start to build their anxiety. So it's just something to be aware of all the time, and the context as well. So some more signs to look out for are, if they get to school and they've managed to get them in, have you got a child who is constantly asking for a phone call home? We've all got them. We've all got the children, especially when they're younger, who just need a little bit of reassurance. They just need to speak to somebody. Are they worried about their friends? What are their friends doing? Will their friends like them? Are they really friends? Social media, is that impacting? And that's a big thing at the moment around bullying on social media. What age are they? How old are they? Do they have access to social media? If they do, what type is it? Are they being bullied inside school, outside school, cyberbullied? They're all things that will build up into anxiety. At playtimes, a good idea is actually to watch them. If you're worried about them, if you think there might be something, just watch them at playtime. What do they do? Have they got a group of friends? Are they always on the periphery? Do they get left out of everything? Because they could be the children where it is starting to build up. And then again, through PE and games can be another trigger for them. So lots and lots of everyday triggers that can build up over time. So some more causes of worry that we've got, and they're small children for all this worry. It is a lot of worry for anybody. So lessons, do they know what they're going to do? Do they know what classroom they're in? What teacher they've got? What are they going to do if their key person's not there? Timetable, have they got visual timetable to help them? If they have got issues with remembering or perception, they might just need some help knowing where they're supposed to be. Are they dyslexic? Is reading an issue? Do they struggle with phonics? Do they sit in every English lesson absolutely terrified that somebody's going to ask them to read out a sentence or follow something on the whiteboard? Maths, the same with dyscalculia. Numbers, you know, their numbers look different to other people's numbers. Their numbers might jump about, they might move around, they might turn upside down, they don't add up together like your numbers and my numbers do. And that can be, again, a big worry. Homework, they worried about school when they were in school, they worry about school when they're not in school. So the homework, they couldn't manage it during the day, they couldn't face it. So there's no point sending it home with them to be completed at home. If they couldn't do it during the day, you're increasing the worry by sending homework home with them. And no, they no longer understand the daily routines because they're overpowered. They can't think straight anymore. They've got so much going on in their heads that they just can no longer think rationally and put things into perspective. So all these things are going on every single day for them. So that's the impact on the child. That's how we recognise it, and that's some of the potential causes. So after all of this, what is the impact on the family? So mental health and well-being, it will be impacting on the family status at home. If they've got a child who is worried, there's a constant battle trying to get them to school. And if they've got siblings, if they can't get them to school in the morning, are they running late? Are their siblings always late coming into school? Is it impacting on parents or carers' jobs, on how they go to work in the morning? What is the difference at home? If their child is coming home dysregulated all the time, what is that doing to their home life? If when they get to work, they're expecting a phone call to say they've got to come and pick them up, or to say, just to reassure their child. It's all those bigger things that we need to think about. So how do we do it? So we can think about some whole school emotional wellbeing planning that we can share with the parents. This is what we do at school. Have you thought about doing that? It can be something as simple as mindfulness. Lots and lots of different reasons. Resilience, again, lots of different programs out there. We've got Thrive is a good program to be following, but there's lots of different resilience programs, and that's where part of the enhanced transition comes into, that we'll go into in a little bit. And then again, we work with and we support parents and carers, because, you know, it's not our child, but we have got the experience. It is our role to be educators for them and to support them and to do what we can to help them. And if that means that if we can support the parents as well, then that will help. So how do we work together? So these are just some ideas, the kind of thing that you can do. So you can talk to the family. It's always the best way to start. Just talk to them. We're worried about the child. We must be, because we've noticed things. Family are worried about them. So the best thing to do is just have a meeting, just talk to each other. So we need to understand the needs of the child and why they're worried. Is there something going on at home? We don't know. Parents and carers are often better placed than that to know the reasons and what might help in the home situation. Does the child need an individual education plan? So this is different to an education and healthcare plan. An individual education plan is something that we put together to help that child. It could be long-term, it could be short-term. They should be shared with all the staff in school, but it is not a formalised legal entity that an EHCP is. So involve the family in formulating the plan. They can feed into it. They can help us. They can give us different insights into what works at home. When it's completed, just make sure that absolutely everyone that has access within the school to that child has got it, because there could be trigger points on there, different things that people need to be aware of. So the adjustments that are made should be consistent, can be made consistently across all the provision that child gets when they're in school. So strategies that could be used at home, you know, give the families some help around routines. Talk to them about how to make a safe space, somewhere where the child can really relax, where they can switch off at the end of the day, where they can just be themselves, and help the families to understand and recognise how the children are feeling. Because from my experience, some families will become defensive because they will see it as a criticism that they can't handle their child, and it's not meant to be a criticism at all. It is meant to be a supportive process of working together with the families to do the best that we can for those children. So don't be surprised if at first the families say no, they don't want to do it. Just keep going, be persistent. At the end of the day, it's for the children. So some children, especially the younger ones, or children who are maybe neurodiverse, or we have some children who are mute, lots and lots of different reasons. Some children can find it really difficult to explain how they are feeling. But what we need to do is try and understand what is making them anxious, because they might not know, they might not be able to describe what is going on. So one idea that I personally use that worked quite well with children who were selected mute is in the middle of a piece of paper, draw a picture of a school, because that's the goal. And then ask them to draw pictures or a map of all the things around them that's worrying them. And then you can add words if they can write, they don't have to write it, just to describe so that we've got a better idea. So things that are little to us are massive to them. And just going to school, and here's just some ideas. So reading, germs seems to become more prevalent now, especially with your 7, 8 and 9-year-olds. Whether it's a throwback to COVID, I don't know, I haven't researched it, but there is more of a worry now around catching germs and becoming ill at school than I've ever had before in my professional career. Reading is always a big worry. Not being able to cope with emotions. Children who get dysregulated before they learn how to regulate through co-regulation very often are scared. They're scared because they know that at some point during that day, they're going to become dysregulated. And then they know that normally something bad will happen and they don't know how to cope with it before, they don't know what to do during, and they don't know what to do afterwards as well. So that can be a real big worry for children, especially if they are neurodiverse. So something as simple as a reward. We're giving them a certificate. They've come into school, they've done a fantastic maths lesson, brilliant, well done, here's your certificate. For some children, that could be the worst thing you could do, because all they're going to do is sit there and worry now. Oh, I've got a certificate. Does that mean I've got to stand up in front of an assembly? You know, do I have to go and stand up in front of my friends? Everyone's going to be looking at me. What if I'm no good at maths tomorrow? So it really is about getting to know the children individually and getting to know their triggers and what you can and you can't do that will help them with cope. Sitting still is a massive one. Children really do struggle, of all ages, children and young people, children up to 18, 19 struggle to sit still. Think of children who've got ADHD, children who have got mobility issues. Part of the problem is that they will come and they think in their head they're coming into school, they have to sit down, they've got to sit in their space and they cannot move. And again, children who dysregulate. Part of their individual education plan that we spoke about before may be that they need a movement break. And we can build that in as we go. They might come into a room for 10 minutes, need a movement break. They might need to go and walk a perimeter. They might need some proprioceptive activities to do. They might need to know that if they become dysregulated, there is a safe space that they can get up and go out with. And one of the key things with this is building a relationship with a trusted adult, which we'll look at in a little bit more detail in a minute. So you can get all of that from one simple activity, just sitting and either talking, depending on the relationship, or simply drawing things that worry them so that you've got a much better idea of what they're thinking about, because the last thing they're thinking about is learning. They've got all these other things to think about before they can even pay any attention to what a teacher is saying to them at the front. So, of course, hand in hand with all of this goes safeguarding implications. So we need to be aware of safeguarding indicators. Have we got eyes on of the children? You know, if they're not coming into school, how can we ensure that they're safe? They're on our school roll. We have a duty of care to them to make sure that they are safe. Is there anything in the background? Again, this is what I said before about work with your families, get to know them. We need to know if there's anything going on at home. Is there a safeguarding risk? Are the children actually going to be safer in school, even though we know they're going to dysregulate? Do we need to look at putting strategies in to get them in school because that's their safe place? Relationships are key. I can't say it often enough. They really are. And we need to understand any risk factors. So they're interconnected. We do have a legal duty. We do have to be able to recognise and prevent physical and mental health issues. And that's in a fairly recent government paper, which is linked in the resources to have a look at how we can support mental health and barriers around attendance. So school-based avoidance could be the result of issues or factors at home. It's not always going to be, but it is one of those things that we need to consider. So it's important that we work closely together to support physical and mental growth and well-being of the young person. And I know nowadays it's really easy to get staff trained or up as mental health first aiders, and they do special courses around it. They can be mental health youth first aiders. It's something that schools should consider alongside training their first aiders as well, so that we can recognise and spot the signs as well. So next, we're going to look at the link to actual school attendance. So we've identified it, we know what it is, we've found out how the children might be feeling, what we can do to support families. So now we're going to have a look at the actual ideas around the school attendance bit. And some of our children and young people that we get especially have been out of school for years. They can be out of school for 2 or 3 years, or they can be in school for a week and out again. They might do an hour a week for 3 months. Really, really sporadic. There's nothing has been built up on there at all. Certain days can be more difficult for them, and this is a really good trend or theme to start to look at if you do get these children in school. If you've got, for example, a child who can manage to attend every afternoon, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, struggles a bit of a Thursday, and can't come in at all of a Friday, and that repeats, so that becomes a pattern or a trend, then that is something that we can look at in more detail. We can analyse it a bit more. What is happening Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that allows the child to attend? What is different with Thursday and Friday? There must be something that is different. Now, it could be as simple as they're getting tired, depending on their age and abilities. They could be getting tired by the end of the week, but it could be something else. And believe me when I say we have seen things such as we have school where Thursday for lunch, the children had a pudding. They didn't have it any other day. Well, they had a pudding, but they had a healthy pudding. Thursday was their treat pudding. So it would always be like a sticky cake or something with custard sugar in it, in other words. And the children dysregulated of Thursday afternoon. And it became a pattern, it became a trend. And when we actually tracked it back, that was what we identified as the cause. So that was a simple fix. We just removed the pudding on the Thursday, and then it all sorted itself out. But it really can be something as simple as that. You just need to have a look at it, see what the data is showing you. Also remember that children may not cope if their trusted adult isn't available. So you can, what we find works a lot is if we build that relationship with one adult. It can be a teacher, it can be a teaching assistant. But you've also got to think, well, what do I do if that person is not in? So I would recommend you never just develop a key relationship with one person, with one adult. Always try and make it with a group of 2 or 3. That way, if one of those key people isn't in, that young person has got somebody else that they've got a relationship with as well. And you've also got to expect some good and some not so good days. You're going to go forward and you're going to go backwards, and you're going to look as though you've got absolutely nowhere, and you've got to start the whole process off again. It will depend on the day. So this is a document by gov.uk, working together to improve school attendance. The link is on the final slide. So in the first instance, schools are expected to support pupils and parents by working together to address in-school barriers to attendance. And that can be as simple as putting in some interventions, looking at when the children come in, part-time timetables, transition timetables, clinical input, therapy, all that kind of thing fits within that box. Where barriers are outside of the school's control, Partners should work together to support pupils and parents to access support they may need voluntarily. If the child has diagnosed SEND, you can signpost the parents to send IAS, to different external agencies where they might be able to get some more help from as well. So action should be reviewed regularly. So it's not a one-off meeting with the parent. You need to keep these up to date. Even if the child isn't attending in between time, we still need to keep that relationship open with the parents, and we need to have the meetings. Where the absence intensifies, so should the support provided, not the other way around. The more a child doesn't attend, the more we have to up the support. So this is where the local authority come in, and where the schools work in tandem with the local authority and any other relevant partners. So it might be at this point you need to set up a multi-agency meeting. Who else is involved with the family? Is there a medical condition? Is there a consultant? Is there a paediatrician? Any school nurses? Is there anybody else at all that we need to? Some families will have a family support worker, some will have early help. Get everybody involved to see what we can do. And sometimes you get everybody involved, then you find out things that you didn't know about before. And where voluntary support hasn't been effective, because it won't always be, or haven't engaged with all the schools, they should work with the local authority, because at the end of the day, as well as the schools, the local authority have a legal obligation for children to attend school. I know as a company, we don't fine children for non-attendance, but the local authority will do. So it is really, really important that we keep our local authority up to date as well with where we are and any interventions and anything that we're doing with school. Because at some point, if we don't get the parents to buy in, if we don't get the children to school, we're going to need that local authority support to move things forward. So the same document details what schools need to be aware of. So it's the mental health needs and attendance. There is a new document that's come out around it. I recommend that you read it. It just goes through what we can class as mental health, what we can't, and how it can be categorised. Complex barriers of special educational needs need to be looked at. So you might need to get your SENCO involved in your multi-agency meetings, work together with families and agencies. What to do if there's an education, health and care plan in place, because that becomes legal documentation that you have to follow to support the child. And also medical evidence requests. It's covered more in that new document. There are times when we can request medical evidence for absences, and there are times when we shouldn't be doing, and that is if we have a recognised mental health condition. So just make sure that you're up to date with the latest legislation around that one, because there is a difference coming through in them. So this one is around another document that they brought out, which is your responsibilities. This is the mental health one. So involve parents and carers at an early stage. Facilitate support for children. Help them. Parents won't know where to go for help. We need to signpost them. Look at part-time timetables. We can use them. We can use transition timetables. Inform the LA, keep them informed all the way through, because they will go down the legal intervention route if the schools don't. And children with SEND or an education healthcare plan could possibly at this point be assigned a social worker, because this is when mental health is starting to impact on their access to education. They won't always be assigned a social worker, but this would be the point at which we would engage them if we were going to try to. And this is all about supporting and helping parents. We are not trying to punish parents. We are really, really trying to help them. So once we've gone past that and we're talking to the child, how do we actually support the return to school? Well, we can put in part-time and transitional timetables. We can make links with classes, teachers and peers before the children even set foot in the classroom. And I'm going to show you one method a little bit later on linked with technology. We can look at transition plans, and we can detailed, shared and plan that gradually extends the amount of time that's spent in school. Like I said before, it might not always be progressive and we might have to restart. But the relationships for that child and for the parents to some extent are the key to everybody feeling safe. So enhanced transition timetables, what do they look like? What are they? Can have a graduated response, clinical support, dedicated team who meet together regularly, SENCO, clinicians, regular meetings with families and providers, tracked and analysed to see, are they working? What might be needed? What's the next steps? They're dynamic. They respond to that day, to that lesson, to that hour. They're based on what the child is feeling at that time. And they are risk assessed. We have to be certain if a child is coming in and they're going to dysregulate or something, or they could be an absconder, that we actually have covered all bases, that we have got a risk assessment in place for if that child leaves that classroom, where they are likely to go and if anything should happen. So it's all just about forward planning within a team. So this is what it looks like in practice. Through regular, consistent home visits, your enhanced transition lead or a person of a similar role are aiming to establish a positive two-way relationship with the young person. This is before we even expect them to set foot in school. They're not going to set foot in school for a few weeks yet. We are building that relationship. They have to learn to trust us because they are worried about coming to school. During the home visit, what the ET leads are looking for is how and what is worrying that young person. What is there? What can we get that will bring them in, if you like? What's their interests? What can we develop? What activities can we do? And this is all going to be built up just through different activities and practices within the home. And there'll all be activities that you're used to, you know, similar to All About Me, all that kind of thing, playing simple games, just building up that trust and that empathy with the young person, because that person, to get into school, really has to trust. It's a big piece of work for them to trust us, and we have to do it. And it can take time, but we really need to work on it. So this is another look at the transition process. So you can see if there's a history of EBSA, anxiety, non-attendance, if parents feel transition to school requires additional support, if they agree to investigate the possibility of enhanced transition. That is what we would be looking at as a key indicator to begin to evolve the enhanced transition process. So the ET lead and support would be identified by the school. The ET would then meet with the parents, that's your enhanced transition lead. There would be a meeting with parents and students. We would ask for their consent. We're not going to do it without their consent. We have to have their consent and they have to agree. And you'll see in a little bit a homeschool contract that we've drawn up. It can be amended, you can make your own, whatever. This is just one that we use. So then the ET begins to gather information and any clinicians are consulted. And then the enhanced transition plans begin properly. And there will be a minimum of home visits twice weekly. And we would never send one person on their own. 2 people as a minimum will go on a home visit. That will happen for 6 weeks. So 6 weeks of at least 2 visits a week before that child even sets foot in school. And we are developing the relationship. We are building that trust. We are letting them get to know us as much as we are getting to know them. Then they'll be assessed to see if they're school ready. And a part of that is talking to them. Are they ready? Are they physically able? Are they going to be able to get into school? If they say yes, then we can begin a transition to school. And that could be as simple as one hour a week. It might be 1 hour a day. It might be less. They might have to just come in, step foot in the school, sit in the entrance for 10 minutes, and then they can go again. It really is working at an individual pace with every individual child. If they're not ready, then we will consider further enhanced transition. Do they need some more time? Do we need to develop the relationship in another way? What is it that we're missing? Or is it just that they are so anxious they need some more time to do it? We could signpost if needed to specific LA services from outside of school if that would help. And then when we've done that, we would assess again. Are they ready for school? If they are, we go back to the begin transition. If they're not, we look at what further actions can we take on an individual basis. And again, it might just be an extended transition. What we won't do is do an extended transition forever and ever and ever. We will at some point say, this isn't working, what do we need to do next? And that would generally be when we would look at some external services. If CAMs aren't involved, do CAMs need to be involved? Do we need to get an ed psych report? Do we need to look down the assistant site? Are we looking at CBT? So that's when we would really start to look down a further external need if we haven't managed after a couple of rounds of ET. Just an example here of an enhanced transition for homeschool agreement. This is what we expect. This is what they expect. Really clear. And the purpose behind this is not to be prescriptive. The purpose behind this is to make it a contract. Because if it's not a contract, then either side can break it and they don't have the buy-in. And what we want is the buy-in. We need the buy-in of the family completely. So we need to know that if we're turning up and we're doing this work, the child's going to be there. It's not a day when they've decided to take them out for ice cream or they've nipped to the shop. So it's a contract on either side. You could write your own contract inside. The content doesn't matter as much as that agreement that we are going to work together for a specific time with a certain aim in mind. There's just some example there of transition notes. And you can see on there, that would be just a regular meeting. So it's just the date, the planned activity, the date the transition is going to run for. That's the 6-week one. And what happened when they got there. So this was a different events that were going on, different things that the school talked to the child about to get them involved with the life of the school, because what we want to do is make them feel part of the school that they're going to be coming into. And that's one of the bridges that we need to build. And I think of enhanced transition as a series of bridges. Child's at home, we're at school, how do we get them from A to B? And that's through a series of little steps along little bridges along the way. So we are very lucky to work with a very large clinical team. And I appreciate that not everybody does. So this is where we have really looked at clinical input, really used the support that we can from around it. And there's a note on there that if anxiety creates a substantial and long-term negative effect on the child or young person's ability to engage in day-to-day activities, it can be considered a disability under the Equality Act 2010. I think your keywords there is substantial and long term. So EBSA can occur as a result of having special educational needs and or disabilities. They are factors that have been recognised, and clinical input gives us the assessments that we need. It can help us understand what interventions we need to put in place to support that young person. And again, you can see on there some of the assessments that we would be doing. We'd be doing screening, maybe a strength and difficulties questionnaire, speech and language, looking at their interaction and communication skills. Are there any specific learning or processing difficulties that we need to consider as well? So we do work with ed psychs, assistant psychs, SALTs, OC therapists, loads and loads of different people. But what we also have done is we've invested in staff, and that's something every school can do. All of our staff are sensory input trained. They're not difficult courses to find, but they can have such a massive impact on a child's daily life within school. And the other thing that we do, if you don't have access to any of these clinical interventions, is you can create different things for the child to help them. A safe space at school that they know where it is and what it is. The key adults, again, with the good relationships, flexible teaching styles and different timetables built around that child's individual education plan. And a whole school understanding of an approach to EBSA, because it's really easy, from my own experience, for SLT, for SENCOs, for therapists to understand what EBSA is, but that doesn't always feed down into all the staff as well. Everybody will benefit from understanding what it is and the challenges that the children are going to face. So finally, I want to have a look at technology and support. So spoke about this briefly before, and this is one piece I by no means advocate for this particular company. It is just a robot that we are using. And there are different ones out there at the moment. But what they do is they provide a link between the school, the classroom, the playground to the child. And what happens is there is a robot, I don't know, 18 inches or so, and an app. And the child at home installs the app on their mobile device. And then the robot sits anywhere, it can sit in the classroom. And via the app, the child can interact with the robot. So the robot can be sat in the classroom, it can be looking at the board, it can be following the teaching. Through the app, the child can express emotion. They can say whether they like it, they don't like it, they can use voices, they can talk through it. But the robot can also interact with the peers. So you could have a friend of the person at home, the child at home, could take the robot out at playtime. They could see the games that are going on. They could join in the games through the robot. And it is just another link to school. It provides a way for the child to interact with their learning, their friends and their classes during the school day in a totally non-threatening way. It is just another way, because I think moving forward, certainly for myself, I think technology is going to play a much, much greater part in helping children with EBSA and helping families. And this is one way that we can do it. We can also use Teams or Zoom. You can get children Zooming in or Teamsing in to different lessons during the day. You can set up meetings for them between peer groups. You can have them join in different events at school, assemblies. You can walk them through a school. You can use drones now that will take a picture, where you can actually take a drone through a school, record it. You can send that to the child just to help, so that they know exactly what they're going to see. There are so many different ways that technology is going to help us in the future that I think we've only really just started to think about it. And that certainly is going to be one area that I'm going to be looking at over the next 6 months more in depth. So hopefully in 6 months' time, I can come back and tell you the role of technology in EBSA as well. So I can give you a little update on that one. So that is really about it from me. You can see on the next couple of slides, there's some links to resources. Young Minds have got some really good ideas there, helping the parents. There are another site with key strategies, and lots of these are built around how do we recognise it? What do we signpost parents to? What can we say to parents? Because parents really, really are impacted by this. You can see there's something on there from Sendai Asks as well, which has got some key points on it. Some frequently asked questions, and a little bit about the mental well-being as well. And on the final slide from me, you can see we've got the link to all the gov.uk resources that I've mentioned tonight. So you can just have a look on those, and paragraphs, page numbers are referenced as well within the slide pack. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.